You know, I was sitting with a cup of tea this morning looking at the old bookshelf in the corner of my living room, and it hit me. Most of those books I haven't touched in years. Some I can't even remember why I kept. And yet, I haven't had the heart to let them go. Does that ever happen to you too? Hi, sweetheart. I'm so glad you're here. Today's video isn't about getting rid of things. It's about making space for ease, for breath, for who you are now. Whether you're thinking about downsizing or just tired of the quiet clutter building up, I want to walk this with you, gently, slowly, like a friend helping you pack not just boxes but memories. A dear friend of mine, her name is June, she's 81, and last year she moved into a smaller home near her daughter. She kept only 3 photo albums, her rocking chair, and her husband's old watch. When I asked if it was hard, she said no. It was like choosing what part of my life I want to take into the next season. That stayed with me. So let's talk about that today. The simple, soulful way to declutter, not to throw things away, but to make room for what still brings us peace. Rule 1. Keep what still reflects you. The other day I was folding laundry. Slow, unhurried, the way I often do now. And at the bottom of the drawer, there it was. An old silk blouse, pale blue, soft as breath. I hadn't worn it in years, but it stopped me still. That blouse used to be my favorite. I wore it on Sundays, to church, to brunches, to quiet walks when I still had a little skip in my step. I held it up, touched the fabric, and suddenly remembered how I felt when I wore it. Light, sure, quietly beautiful. I didn't keep it because I planned to wear it again. I kept it because of what it reminded me of, a version of me that once felt so alive. But standing there that morning, something softened in me. I realized I don't need to hold on to every piece that ever meant something. What matters now is, does it still feel like me? See, after 60, life starts whispering to us, gently but clearly. It says, make room, not just in closets, but in spirit. We've carried so much through the years, sweaters soaked with memories, dresses tied to decades, jackets that once hugged the shape of a younger self. But not everything that was once us still is. I had a friend, Elaine. She kept an entire closet of her old teaching clothes, big shoulder pads, pleated skirts, those oversized blouses with the floppy bows. She hadn't stepped in a classroom in 2 decades. I asked her once why she kept them, and she sighed, because I think I was afraid. Afraid that if I let go of them, I'd be letting go of her, the woman I was. That day, we sat together piece by piece. And when she finally let herself keep only what still felt like her now, oh, you should have seen her smile. It wasn't about loss. It was about choosing. Choosing to honor who she's become. That's really what this first rule is about. Not decluttering for the sake of clean shelves, but making space for who you are today. For your softness, for your peace, for your ease. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And that, my dear, is the gentlest place to begin. Let's keep going because there's more we're still holding on to. Some of it quietly. Even in places we don't expect. Rule 2. Only keep items used in the last year. Yesterday, I was tidying the hallway closet, the one with the older coats and scarves that seemed to have stories of their own. Tucked behind a pile of winter things, I found a green wool shawl I used to love. It still smelled faintly of cedar. I held it close and smiled, but then I realized I hadn't worn it in years. Not last winter, not the one before. It had quietly slipped out of my life without me even noticing. It's funny how gently time moves when you're not looking. Things stay, but they stop being part of your rhythm. They stop showing up in your mornings, in your small rituals. And yet, there they are, still occupying space,
still quietly asking, will you need me again someday? After 60, we don't just clean our closets. We face parts of ourselves we didn't know we were still carrying. That blouse from your daughter's graduation, even if it's been untouched for years. The old tea set from a friend who's passed. Or that pair of jeans you swore you'd fit back into again. It's not just fabric and ceramic, it's memory, it's identity, it's maybe one day. But here's the thing I've learned gently, over time. If something hasn't been part of your daily life, your real life, in the past year, then perhaps it belongs to a version of you that's already been thanked, already lived. My neighbor Judith once told me with teary eyes, I keep things because I feel like if I let them go, I might disappear a little too. And I understood her. We've all felt that. But letting go doesn't mean erasing. It means choosing presence, making room for what truly breathes with you. Now, a house isn't a museum, it's a nest. And the more it fills with unused weight, the harder it becomes to feel light. So maybe the question isn't, will I need this someday? But rather, has this loved me recently? Have I let it love me? Because, darling, we don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. Now, let's talk about guilt, that quiet shadow that clings to the things we no longer use. That's where Rule 3 gently steps in.
Rule 3: create breathing space, not just empty space. This morning, I opened the drawer where I keep my scarves. For once, it wasn't overflowing. I had cleared it out a few weeks ago, just kept the ones I actually wear, the ones that still feel like me. And as I slid it open, I paused. There was space. Not a gaping, lonely kind of space, but something softer, like the drawer had learned to breathe again. You see, we often think decluttering means stripping things down to the bare bones, empty walls, bare shelves, silence. But life after 60 doesn't ask us for emptiness. It asks us for air, for the kind of room where you can breathe deeply without bumping into old versions of yourself everywhere you look. I remember my friend Eleanor. After her husband passed, she couldn't bear to move anything in the house. For years, every shelf stayed the same, every corner filled. When she finally let herself rearrange the living room, just moved the armchair to face the window, she said, I didn't realize how loud everything felt until it got quiet enough for me to hear myself again. That's what breathing space does. It doesn't erase the past. It just lowers the volume so your present can speak. And as we age, our hearts crave more of that. Not a spotless home, but a gentle one. Not an empty drawer, but one that opens without struggle. The goal isn't to be minimalist for the sake of trend, but to feel like you're no longer drowning in shoulds and someday maybes. Because when your space breathes, you do too. So maybe we don't clear things just to make them go away. Maybe we clear space so our lives, our quiet, beautiful, ordinary lives, can stretch their arms a little wider. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. Now let's talk about guilt. Not the kind that screams, but the one that whispers from the back of the closet. That's the thread we'll gently pull on next. Rule 4: one in, one out. Yesterday, as I was putting away a soft blue cardigan I just brought home, I noticed how tight the closet door was getting again. You know the feeling. Hangers rubbing shoulders, drawers that won't quite close, things falling off the shelf when you reach too quickly. I stood there for a moment, cardigan in hand, and I thought of something my mother used to say when we were little. If you bring something in, you send something out with thanks. It was such a gentle rule, almost like a rhythm, a breath in, a breath out, not a punishment, not a restriction, just a quiet kind of balance. And the older I get, the more I understand what she meant. At our age, we're not adding to our lives like we did in our 30s.
We're not building walls of just in case anymore. We're editing now, like writers of a long, rich story, trimming what doesn't serve the next chapter. Letting go isn't always about the thing, it's about the space it holds in our homes, in our hearts, even in our energy. When we let something new in without releasing something else, our lives can start to feel like a hallway with no exits. And that's when the clutter doesn't just sit in the room, it starts sitting on your chest. My friend Martha told me once after her husband passed that she kept buying little things, scarves, kitchen tools, more picture frames. She didn't even notice it at first, just felt like she needed something. But her house got heavier. One day, while dusting, she sat down with an old mug in her hands, one she hadn't used in years, and whispered, "Why am I still keeping this?" It's not always easy to answer that. Sometimes we keep out of habit, sometimes out of guilt or memory. But one in, one out isn't cold. It's kind. It says, "Thank you for what you were. I'm making room for what I need now." The cardigan I brought home yesterday, I let go of a sweater I hadn't worn in 2 winters. It had served me well, but its time had passed. And when I closed the closet, it felt quiet, not empty, just peaceful, like the space had exhaled. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And if we listen closely, we might start to notice it's not always the big piles we need to face. Sometimes it's the tiniest things, tucked in corners, that carry the heaviest feelings. Let's open that drawer next. Rule 5: let go without guilt. The other day, I opened the small wooden drawer by the kitchen window, the one I jokingly call my treasure chest. Inside was an old handkerchief, its cotton softened with time, corners delicately embroidered with faded purple flowers. I hadn't touched it in years, but I remembered instantly. It was the one I held when my daughter told me she was moving out of state. I've never used it again, but I've kept it, like so many of us keep things, not because we need them, but because we're afraid of what letting go might mean. Afraid it might mean we're forgetting, or worse, dishonoring the memory. But you see, holding on to something out of guilt doesn't serve us. It's like carrying a backpack you no longer need, but feel too guilty to set down. And that weight, it lingers, quietly but persistently. I had a dear friend named Elaine. After her husband passed, she kept every single one of his dress shirts. The closet was packed so tightly she barely had space for her own sweaters. One afternoon, as we were folding laundry together, I asked softly, "Do you ever wear any of these?" She gave a small, sad smile and whispered, "No, but letting them go feels like betrayal." That struck me deep, because how many times have we done the same? Held on to old dishes, coats, even birthday cards, not because we still use them, but because we're afraid to seem ungrateful. But memories don't live in things. They live in us, in our hearts, in our stories, in the way we carry those we've loved. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's trusting that love doesn't need a drawer or a box to be kept alive. And sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves and for what we've lost is to let go with grace. If there's something you're holding on to with a heavy heart, maybe start with this. Place your hand gently on it, say, "Thank you," and then imagine it blessing someone new. You're not discarding. It's more like passing the torch. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. And in the space that opens, you might find something unexpected. Not emptiness, but peace. Not loss, but room to breathe. Let's keep walking, gently, into what's next. Rule 6: take it slow, room by room. Yesterday, I found myself standing at the threshold of the guest room, just standing there, holding a cup of lukewarm tea, looking in. The bed still had the old quilt my sister gave me years ago. The closet door was slightly ajar, revealing a few boxes stacked neatly, yet untouched. I didn't go in.
I just stood and breathed. And that, I've learned, is sometimes enough for one day. We often think we need to do everything at once, clear out every drawer, decide on every keepsake, clean out decades in a weekend. But that pressure, it wears on us, especially when every room holds not just things, but chapters of our lives. One of my neighbors, Nancy, tried to do it all in 1 week before she moved into her retirement cottage. She called me on the second night, teary and overwhelmed, saying, "It's like I'm erasing myself." My heart broke a little because I've been there too, sitting in the hallway between two boxes, one labeled keep, the other donate, wondering why this felt more like grieving than organizing. Taking it one room at a time isn't just practical, it's kind. It gives our hearts time to catch up with our hands. You can sit on the edge of the bed and open one drawer. You can listen to an old song while folding linens. And if all you do is open a closet and close it again, that's still progress. Because sometimes touching the memories gently before putting them down is the most sacred act. We are not behind. We are not slow. We are honoring what we've lived by not rushing through it. And believe me, there is no gold medal for finishing fast, but there is quiet peace in finishing with love. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. So take it slow, room by room, memory by memory. You're not just clearing space, you're making room for what still matters. Let's walk into the next room when you're ready.
Rule 7. Digitize papers and keep what's truly important. There's a small wooden box I keep in the corner of my bedroom, not because it's precious, but because it reminds me of Sunday afternoons when my kids were little and life moved a bit slower. That box used to be overflowing with old receipts, folded up notes, greeting cards, warranties from appliances I no longer own. One day, I opened it to find a grocery list from 1998, and I couldn't help but smile. Eggs, cinnamon, birthday candles. I sat there on the carpet, cross-legged like I was in my 30s again, and thought, how many of these papers are truly mine? And how many are just clutter dressed up as memory? There's something about papers that tricks us. A folder here, a stack there. And suddenly we're carrying decades, utility bills from 3 addresses ago, tax documents long past their keep date, pages we thought we'd read again but never did, and every time we pass them by, there's this low hum of stress, that quiet whisper, "You should deal with this." Evelyn, one of my oldest friends, turned 81 last spring. She called me the week after her birthday, her voice light like spring air. "I finally did it," she said. "I scanned every document, every receipt. It's all digital now." I asked her what she kept in hard copy, and she chuckled. "Just 3 things. My wedding photo, a letter my husband wrote me in 1972, and the recipe card in my mama's handwriting." That was it. Everything else was just noise. We don't realize how much visual clutter wears us down. It's not just about paper. It's the stories, the guilt, the "maybe I'll need this someday" that sits heavy in our drawers. But clarity is a gift we can give ourselves. Not just clean space, but quiet space. And it's not about erasing the past. It's about honoring it with care. When you hold that one letter, the one that truly means something, you feel its weight differently. You read it slowly. You let the words wrap around you like an old song you never forgot. The rest? It can be kept safely, digitally, where it doesn't clutter your mind or your shelves. Letting go of piles doesn't mean letting go of who we are. It means we're choosing presence over paperwork, and that's a wise choice. We don't keep stacks to prove we existed. We keep one note to remind ourselves why we did. Now pour yourself another cup of tea. We're almost there. In just a moment, we'll talk about the art of leaving space for the next chapter.
I folded one last blouse this morning, pale lavender, soft from years of wash and wear. I didn't put it back in the drawer. I laid it gently in the giveaway pile. Not because I didn't love it, but because it had served its season. And somehow, Letting it go felt like saying thank you for all the mornings it wrapped around me when I wasn't quite ready to face the day. That's the thing no one tells you about decluttering. It isn't really about stuff. It's about emotion, memory, and making peace with what was. Every drawer we sort, every paper we toss, every blouse we release, it's not just clearing space in our homes. It's creating space in our hearts for calm, for rest, for what matters now. I remember my neighbor Carol. She lost her husband a few winters back. She told me the hardest part wasn't the quiet house, it was the drawers. They were full of what we once were, and I didn't know what to do with that. We sat on her porch for hours, not sorting, just talking. A few weeks later, she started with one drawer, then another. By spring, she said she could breathe again. So if today's video felt a little close to home, I want you to know you're not alone. We're not meant to hold on to everything. We're meant to hold on to what still holds us. And if that means keeping a letter from your son but letting go of old instruction manuals, that's not giving up. That's choosing peace. We don't declutter to throw things away. We do it to keep only what gives back to our soul. If any part of this touched you today, I hope you'll share it, or maybe just leave a comment below. Tell me about the thing you kept and why, or the thing you let go of and how it felt. I'll be right here. Same porch, same cup of tea, same quiet company. Until next time.